that up a little bit closer.
But I can't see Tom Cole.
You can be back here.
You see Tom now?
Yes, I can see Tom. Yep, we can get everybody right.
Okay.
Good. All right, we're ready? Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Bill. I think you know that after all this time, many familiar faces in the room. I'll be your chairperson tonight. Bear with us as we go through some housekeeping matters, but I will call meeting to order. Note that Cole, Kopkow, Ford, and myself are present. Kingan is recused. Marilot and Fave are excused. In regards to our minutes from June 15th, was there any corrections, folks? Any additions or corrections? If there isn't any additions, or corrections, I will minutes are accepted without objection. Chris, anything you'd like to report on this evening? And again, John, I'm sorry, this is the first time for us doing this, so at any time Michelle loses me or somebody holler.
I'll let you know.
Okay. Tom, anything you'd like to talk about from last night?
No, I don't think there was anything that pertained to us.
Okay. Bob's not here, so nothing on the ZBA. Anything from Terry, Bob, anything to add? I want to take this, okay, and I'd like to take this just brief opportunity. This is Chris's last meeting with us. You're a fine human being, Mr. Linesapple. And
That's the truth.
For 15 years, you've tried to keep me in line, and I do appreciate the efforts. But it's a hopeless task. You can just ask my wife. So I do appreciate it, man.
The pleasure's been on mine.
Congratulations. So. The agenda's been passed out. This is now the time for public comment. And again, as I've learned many things over the last year, this is our one opportunity for public comment with the planning commission. We'll get through our agenda and move into the continuation of the public hearing on the RV park. We will not take more public comment at that point. We've already closed that section back in July of last year. So this is an opportunity though for public comment. I would, again, we've all been great. We do try to keep it to 3 minutes so we can all get a little bit of sleep tonight. So I'm going to start. Michelle, who's on the managing the Zoom for us there with John, has asked that we start public comment here in the room first, and then we'll move to the folks remotely. So anyone wish to make any public comment? And yes, ma'am, it'd be very helpful for us if you wouldn't mind, name, always helpful.
Certainly. So my name is Abigail Hawley, and I'm here with Olson Bisstock and Howard on behalf of Tessa. I will be very brief. First, Mr. Chairman and Commission, I would just like to thank all of you for all of the work that you've put in over the past year with the RV park permit application consideration. We really appreciate that this commission has gone ahead and engaged with experts, has developed a subcommittee, and really done its due diligence when it comes to looking at this project. The second thing I'd like to say is that we have reviewed the findings of fact done by Beckett and Rader, and we are in agreement with the ultimate recommendation to deny the permit application. With that, we would just urge this commission to adopt that resolution denying the permit application, and we thank you for all of the work and time you've put into this matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Please raise your hand. Ms. Lawrence.
My name is Lori Brewer. I want to point out to.
Lori, again, Write to us, please.
I want
Thank
to
you.
point out to the committee that there's been a lot of intimidation going on. There's been people playing chicken with our dump trucks. Neil Way, our surveyor, has been called at home and harassed and threatened, and this needs to not continue. I don't know what to do about it. People are more than welcome to express their opinions and views in an ethical and moral and respectful way, but this intimidation needs to stop.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah.
Yeah, Andy Blodgett, attorney for the applicant. So we are going to ask you to deliberate and vote tonight. I think that is step 9 in your bylaws. Finally, as you said, public comment is done. And as part of that, I believe if you folks have questions, the applicant should be allowed to dialogue. There's been a lot of talking, but not with us, unfortunately. That was part of your motion back at Raider. It never happened. The one dialogue was in the subcommittee where the 3-hour meeting record was lost. So if you have questions, please don't just rely on the Becker Raider reports. Please ask. I've submitted a letter today. I would ask that be part of the record. Carrie May has as well. And so those are our main comments. We think that Beckett Raider document, the proposed findings of fact, is flawed and biased. Carrie pointed out a lot of errors, and I have a real problem, frankly. We have Tessa saying, you should adopt it. Well, there's been no deliberation. We, the applicant, have no idea what the members of this planning commission think about this project. And yet we already have cooked up for you findings of fact to say yes or no to. That's opposite. I understand, you heard me say don't delay. I understand the notion of using an outside expert to gather information, give you technical expertise. You can't outsource your deliberation. You cannot outsource your role to make a decision. So that's what we're asking for tonight, for you to take back this process, vote on this project. The big problem with those findings of fact and that motion, they totally ignore the ordinance specific to RV resorts. And you've got to go through that, vote through all 17 of those elements, standards of 117.1602 and 1605, and we'd ask you to do that tonight. Thanks.
Thank you. Yep.
Excuse me,
Thank you,
for the
Tyler.
people that are on
Oh.
Zoom, can we have the speakers, if it's possible, I'm getting messages that we can't hear who's speaking. If they could just project a little louder or get closer to the speaker.
Okay, this will be speaking, will be Jim Brewer.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
my name's Joe Brewer, and I'm the applicant. Like you, I'm on the planning commission, and like you, I took an oath to God and country. I take that seriously. To uphold the master plan and the ordinance, okay? When you look at what's going on, okay? We haven't been allowed to talk in a year and a half, short of the 3-hour meeting. Mr. Michelangelis here believes that there will be 55 cars in the marina parking lot at night because we have 10 campers. This is our busy season. There's 2 last night. You don't believe it? Pull in there at 9 o'clock at night and look. There's 2 cars, okay? He says we should have 55, okay? I don't know where he gets it. The state of Michigan says you have to have 1.5, not 5.5. I don't know where he got his engineering degree, his traffic expertise, but some of us are engineers. It's an indisputable fact. Our property's in the village. It's an indisputable fact. RV parking, this is special use. It's an indisputable fact. Mr. Michelangelis agrees that it was designed to the ordinance. It's an indisputable fact that the septic was designed overkill. It's an indisputable fact that the stormwater runoff was designed overkill. Yeah, you heard it, Terry, in the subcommittee meeting when their engineer that they hired, who we weren't allowed to talk to, stated it very clearly. Quite honestly, we've done everything right, and we've been made to feel like criminals. We have people shooting guns when we go up there and work. We have people playing chicken. We had to call the state police. The dump truck driver just went to a chiropractor and had whiplash. He hit the brakes so hard. We have a next door neighbor trying to steal our property. We have people beating on the surveyor's car and calling them at night. We know all the names. We can give you all the names. You know, there's such a thing as caller ID. You know, when you find that out when you make horrible calls in the middle of the night. But I urge you guys, you know what we've done. We worked with you all along. You know we haven't built a campground. You know we did just enough to get a site proposal. We haven't done any work on scoping a RV park. There's not one piece of land up there that's degraded, okay? So we've been waiting to get the permit for years.
Thank you. Joyce. And Joyce, I'm not sure if this microphone is gonna be able to pick you up, so that's what I'm a little worried about. But go ahead. You got a good big voice, Joyce.
I
Use
do
it.
have a loud.
Thank you very much.
I was born and raised in this community. I am a true native, and I am so happy to see Mr. Jim with the campground. Our son has stayed over in the Torch Grove campground, which is on Crystal Beach Road. And he said almost every camper there is of the older nature. They go downstate for the week, a lot of them. They come back for the weekend and have a nice time. Very quiet. He says it's a wonderful campground, and I'm sure this one will be the same. I am here to urge Milton Township Board, this board, to vote yes for that permit. It is in your master plan. There is no reason that this community should not enjoy those campsites. Thank you.
Thank you. Who else? Tim.
Tim Smith, 13835 Chippewa Trail. It was our understanding that public comments were completed, and therefore any letter from Mr. Blodgett or Carrie May should be ignored because the public hearing is closed. And the other thing is, we really feel that the committee has done a great job analyzing the situation, and we thank you for your effort. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Go over more. Karen, go ahead.
So I'm Carrie May. I'm the lead engineer working with Corey Fraser on the campground. I just wanted to say that now, if you are going into your deliberation phase, I know there's a tremendous amount of information in front of you. I hope that we can be patient and go through whatever questions you have, whatever information is new or you haven't seen. I'm happy to explain. I believe Jennifer Hodges, one of our other engineers, and Eric Arbut are on Zoom at the meeting. If you have any questions about the well design or the septic design, they're here to answer those. I can certainly go through some of the documents that were only seen by subcommittee members at that meeting and talk about those. I think, there were some questions that have been outstanding. And there's been some contentions that there's enough new information or changes that there needs to be a new site plan. But there's no way that we can create a new site plan if things come up that are, well, would you like this or would you like this, So if we can get to some of those answers, I think we could be much better at coming to a resolution of the project. And we can go over those again. You probably remember them. I think there was maybe 3 or 4 questions that were outstanding. And anything else that, has gone over, the parking or the stormwater, any of those things, I'm happy to explain, talk about. Just hope that you will take advantage of asking me questions. Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else here in the audience? Going once, going twice. Yes, sir.
My name is Tom Cavalier, and I've been following this debate for a year and a half. I wrote a letter last year opposing it for a variety of reasons stated in my letter. I'm not familiar with the report that has been issued, but my position remains the same as it has from the beginning. I feel it's inappropriate for the particular area, for that particular village. I have a cottage that's not far from there, and I feel concerned about the impact that it will have on my land values and values of the people around. So I understand you're going into deliberations, and I know you will do the best job as you possibly can. I appreciate your work, but I just want to go on record as opposed to it, and I leave it in your hands.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'm Nancy Appel. I have no intentions of talking.
Sorry, Nancy, go ahead.
I live right by there, and I have to come out that way every time I leave my road, which it's Fairmont Drive down on Lake Skigmont. So I know what it's like on a daily basis. I wish I could have done the traffic study for you, but it's a zoo. It's a zoo right now. It was a zoo last weekend. It was not the 4th of July last weekend. I mean, it's just a mess. And so at this point, I stay home. I mean, I can remember times when I ran over to the post office for something and I couldn't get back over the bridge. Well, my family's all here and I would like to spend time with them on a holiday weekend. I'd also like to enjoy the beautiful things that we have here to enjoy on the weekends. And it seems to me that it isn't the locals that get to enjoy the beautiful things we have here, except during the week, if then. So I'd just like to state that I too have written a letter. I've attended Zoom meetings, I've attended outdoor meetings, and it has gone on for quite a long time, and I can't even believe I'm talking right now, but I just have to say that I too am opposed. Thank you for all you've done as well.
All right. There's no one else here in person. Michelle, I'm going to
Can you all hear me? Hello?
Hear you.
everyone out there watching.
Yep.
We can hear you. Michelle, I will keep an eye on the time, just like I did for the folks who are here. And again, we'll just ask folks to be respectful of that. So.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Michelle.
Okay, so for the people that have called in on Zoom, I currently see 3 with their hands up. If you do want to speak this evening and you're on Zoom, if you're on a screen like a laptop or a device, you can hover over the bottom and there should be an icon that says reactions. And that's where if you click on that, it will give you the little icon to raise your hand like that. If you can't figure that out, you can send me a chat. So you can go to the chat box and in the drop down, write to Beckett and Rader, and that will come to me. But I'm going to start with the people that have their hand up currently. The first person is just called iPhone. Can you please, I'm going to request that you unmute yourself and state your name so I can rename you.
Is it me?
Yes, sounds
My
like
name is Laura Witt, and I am currently a longtime customer of the marina. I want to come out in support of the campground. We are one family that has our name on the list. We have had nothing but professional service. We never witnessed anything wild or crazy in that marina. Last week, I reviewed the recording of the meeting of the subcommittee, and I just wanted to point one thing out. They did state that the traffic is going to be from people that are currently members of that marina. How is that additional traffic? Those people are already there. You're counting them twice in those studies. And the other thing I wondered, from the gentleman who said he had, I can't remember the exact amount of weight in clay that landed in his yard. I wondered if that's something that happens every time it rains. Was it a one-time thing, and has it been resolved? The third thing and the last thing is, I was a little surprised that after that subcommittee was appointed to do fact finding, that when they did the fact finding and they didn't like the facts, now they want another study of it. That just seems very irregular and inappropriate to me. That's it. I encourage you to vote in favor of the campground.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next I'm gonna go to Ann Hatch.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this is Mark Hatch, and my wife is here with me. We are residents on Fairmont Drive, and we just wanted to make some comments. I want to commend the Township Board and the Planning Commission for all their efforts, their due diligence, and trying to gather as much information as they can, trying to contemplate the consequences of this development. The bottom line is that this is a special use permit. This is not someone requesting a permit to build a home in a residential area or put a barn on agricultural land. The fact that the developer began proceeding with this development before they have a permit, it has no bearing on the ultimate decision. This development is only going to benefit a very few people. Obviously the developer and the people who use this RV park are not residents by and large. They don't live here. They don't work here, and they don't pay taxes on our community. The overwhelming majority of people who have commented on this development have been opposed to it. The responsibility and duty of our elected and appointed officials is to do what is in the best use of the community as a whole. The developer is grasping at straws, trying to prove that this is not detrimental, but I hear no one really indicating how this is going to be so beneficial to our community as a whole. The absolute folly of this proposal is blatantly obvious, and I urge the committee to deny the use permit. Do you really in your hearts think that this project will benefit our entire community? Or will you wake up in a few days or weeks or months and say, oh my gosh, what the heck were we thinking? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next will be David Witt.
Yes, that's me. Can you hear me?
Yes, you are echoing though, so if you are in the same room, I'm guessing maybe as Laura Witt.
Yeah.
You guys.
Yeah, I'll move.
Yeah, thank you.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to voice my support for the RV park too. You know, I've come up here for 20 years, and last year we were up here about 30 days, and we're up here right now for 2 weeks. And the only time I've ever had a traffic issue around the marina has been boats going into the boat launch. It's not people driving in and out of the marina or from that RV park down the hill across the street. That we go there whether we be at the RV park or whether we're up here like we are now staying in Elk Rapids. We're driving there anyway. And there are plenty of other RV parks, one in Mansalona, the Torch Grove, other ones around here that we pass on the way up. They're not a bad thing. They're not wild parties. You know, I'm almost 70, You know, a lot of us are older people who are retired that want to come up here and enjoy this. No, we don't live up here because I'm not a multimillionaire and I'm not going to buy a $500,000 house on Torch Lake, but I'd like to enjoy the lake in a respectful and responsible manner. And for me, an RV park is a very economical way to do that. So I'm in favor of it. And I think the economic impact we make with eating at restaurants, buying gas at the old Fabiano's, buying some beer at the party store, and eating at you know, Alden Bar and all the other places around here, we do bring economic activity to the community, and servicing the trailers in the RV park and maintaining the RV park will bring jobs and economic activity to the area as well. So I disagree with all these people that think it's a traffic nightmare or somehow we're a bunch of, you know, drug smuggling hippies or something. We're just people that want to come up here and enjoy the view, boat on Torch Lake, and be able to spend a little time without having to find a hotel room every time we want to come up. So again, I'm an outsider, but I think the thing's a good thing and would be beneficial. So I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, the only other hand I have up right now is Tony Martina. For anyone who called in on the phone, if you need to raise your hand, I believe it's *9. So that will indicate to me that you'd like to speak. Again, if you're having any trouble, you can message me, but otherwise this is our last hand up right now for the public hearing participants on Zoom. So Tony, you're up.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Mhm.
Okay. Like a lot of people, I wanted to take the moment to thank the committee and everybody involved to take the time to do this today. It's been a long process. A year ago, when we were all standing at the park with our masks on, trying to social distance, I asked a question of the committee based on the statute that referenced when they are allowed to approve such a special use. And I referenced the statute verbatim. I won't do that now, but it, you know, in no situation that it can negatively impact the community is it appropriate. And the response I was given by, I believe, the member that has recused himself was that, is any development wrong? And that was just, I don't think he understood the question I was asking. Through this whole process, there's been everybody, and even so far tonight, everybody's partisan. Everybody has an opinion, whether it's the Jim who has put in the request and his attorney, or Tessa, or neighbors. The overwhelming people on this have been opposed to this. There's only been one piece of information that I have seen that is a nonpartisan report on this, and the Becker and Rader report. In my opinion, I believe the township had the report performed. It's a nonpartisan, non-opinionated opinion that states this shouldn't go forward. This gives the board and the committee the cover it needs to do the right thing. Do the right thing by the community, do the right thing for what you're doing as a volunteer. This is all the information you need. There's no more subjectivity. So, I mean, I just wanted to say that this report is a big deal. I read through it today. It hit all the points, or many of the points that people have raised over the last year. I don't like to hear engineers be called out about, you know, where they get their license. It's a nonpartisan opinion. Rely upon this. Please do the right thing for the committee. This gives you all the cover you need to do the right thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, there's no other hands up, virtual hands up on Zoom for the public comment.
And nobody's indicated, anyone calling in, Michelle, you communicated that to them, how they access?
I haven't received any chat messages, although someone did just join the meeting. So maybe we'll let that person, if you have a comment, you can raise your hand. But no, there's no other messages at the
We have
moment.
63 people on Zoom.
Yes.
I'll just again, give it a 1, 2, 3. Just to make sure, Michelle.
Yeah, okay, so everybody on Zoom, this is your last chance. If you're interested in commenting, please use the raise your hand features, which again, if you hover over the bottom of your screen, there's an icon that says reactions. You click on that, you'll find a hand. Okay, we have one hand that just went up, and or you can send a message out, and I will find you on the participant list, and then you can speak. So let's go to our next guest. I will ask you to unmute, but if you could please tell us your name so I could rename you right now. You're just a phone number ending in 9242. So the person who called in with 9242, you're unmuted, so you can speak. Can you please tell us your name so I can rename you? We can't hear you if you are trying to communicate with us.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, it's Stephen Rochelle Lane, and we live on Torch Lake Drive, and we've been coming up here for 40, 50 years. Residents on Torch Lake don't have $1 million house. We've experienced neighbors renting, dogs running wild, have complained in the past. Nothing really has been done about it. So our question is, at the RV park, is there going to be someone monitoring the vehicle that parks more than 6 during the night, 10 during the day? And if so, what is going to be the penalty, and how is that going to be handled? We are not for the RV park for various reasons. And like I said, the community around here has issued rental properties, and people have taken advantage of the guidelines, and nothing has really been done about that. So we're just not for the RV park. And thank you for all your time.
Thank you.
Okay, I did just receive one question via chat that was, where can the traffic study report be found online?
All right, so again, this is public comment. This isn't question and answer. So that's what I'm looking for, is public comment.
Okay, then there's nobody else at this time.
Okay, I will close public comment. And on our agenda tonight, I have the Torch Lake RV Park continued public hearing. Also have set the agenda for August 10th meeting. I would like to ask the other 3 members if I may delete the set the agenda for August meeting. I communicated with the board last night that obviously we're losing our zoning administrator, and we don't have him walking in the door when he's leaving at this point. So if you're comfortable with that, I would like to leave that. I'd like to leave that off, and obviously I'll communicate with the planning commission and the new zoning administrator at some point by that. Is that okay with you folks? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's fine. Do we have any indication of timing for the new administrator?
No.
Replace the replacement.
Right. Well, remember, it's the government, so, yeah. Okay, the only thing on our agenda then will be the Torch Lake RV Park, continued public hearing. Anything else to add? Can I get a motion to approve the agenda, please?
Make a motion to the agenda.
And is there a second? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay.
As a bit of a recap then, we'll move again right to the continued public hearing. I'll try to bring us back up to speed where we left off previously. We had closed on the comment portion of the public hearing. We've acknowledged receipt of letters. We obviously were together out in Park July, I think it was 14th of last year. And then we reconvened January 15th. This year. I think as Mr. Blodgett mentioned, obviously through myself, if there's any questions for consultants, applicants, sorry, wasn't looking for somebody had a question. Okay.
I was gonna wait till you.
Okay.
Then I'd like to speak.
Fantastic. Was obviously we can do that in this section of our deliberations. Our options tonight remain as they have previously, to approve with conditions, deny, or also refer back to subcommittee with the further study. 1601 subparent C, subparent 4 is very clear. It requires us to deny an application if the special land use permit does not comply with the ordinance that requires the evidence. On the other hand, 1601 subparent C, subparent 6 requires we approve the application, which is in compliance with all standards. I do want to say to everyone, I know emotions have run high. It certainly breaks my heart to hear allegations of things going down the village. But I just want to say, I guess for everyone, maybe for my how I feel, or whether I like an application, or how I feel about an RV park, or it isn't relevant to me. I understand you folks can be emotional about this. I totally get it. I've sat out there for 4 years back. We don't have that luxury. Whoever has the most friends or has the most money, it doesn't matter. That's not how it works. Our deliberations should, my deliberations, most people will be based upon the application and our ordinance. That's it. I do want to indicate, and again, I know I'm repeating myself to you folks, our decision or the planning commission's decision on a special land use application is final. So it's something that can be appealed to the township board or the ZBA. It obviously can always be appealed to the 13th Circuit Court. So that being said, thanks for letting me get on my soapbox. But I will open up the table right after Mr. Levin has something.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just suggest that perhaps the chair close the public hearing and return then the matter to the board for deliberations.
Thank you very much. I close the public hearing and for the board for deliberations.
You may want to ask for
a motion and a second.
And a second.
Thank you very much. May I have a motion to close the public hearing and refer back to us for deliberations? So moved. May I have a second? Second. Will we do a roll call vote on that, Mr. Minton? Or voice
vote.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Aye. Okay, Mr. Minton? Thank you. So who would like to start? Again, you all have copies of our procedures. I mean, Any commission member to begin discussions and deliberations?
I got a couple of questions that I just. As I've been reviewing this. One kind of a strange one, the question of motor homes. At one point that came up, it was not listed somewhere in this information that the position was that they were excluded. And I never got a definitive answer as to whether that was by design or whether that or not.
By motorhomes, what do we mean?
Well, they said there were campers and so forth, and then there was some information about motorhomes were not specifically mentioned as being allowed in the park. But then there was reference to where they were placed on the site. There was driver's side reference, there was passenger side reference. So it kind of clearly said, yeah. At one point, after my tour of the RV site, you suggested that I go down and look at the park on 72 by the resort. Said, indicating that was kind of the goal, to have something similar to that, net quality and so forth. So went down and looked at that, and I saw a number of those really nice older homes as part of that park. So I just wanted to, everybody can give me a definitive answer on whether those are.
Tom, Tom or Terry, got any input on that to answer that?
Well, my understanding is it's opposite, it wouldn't be the small campers and size limit on motorhomes and.
But motorhomes are definitely going to be part of it.
That was my understanding.
Again, I do certainly reserve the right to inquire of the applicant or attorneys in regards to clarification. So, Jim, I'm gonna hope that you're the best one to answer that question. Or maybe Andy.
No.
Okay.
These guys.
Okay.
If you want real data.
All right, okay.
I'll answer that. The motorhomes requires to meet cement pad because they're so heavy to turn and motorhome by definition is going in and out. This is a seasonal park where they would put their trailer there for the whole year. I have absolutely no problem if you make it a conditional approval that there shall be no motorhomes in that park. These will be trailers. These will be trailers and fifth wheels and stuff like that.
Are they specifically excluded, I guess?
I do not think they're specifically excluded in the ordinance, but I would have no problem with the condition of approval that, because we don't want to put cement pads up there, we want maximum infiltration of groundwater. We don't want cement pads.
I don't have a problem with them not being there. It's kind of a curiosity thing. And I didn't see them there, and somebody brought it up somewhere along the way. And I was just curious if by design you decided not to do that. Oh, so I wouldn't put a condition necessarily.
Is there remember right that there was a certain size limit on the campers and that, or?
Well, there's a size limit as to how long a trailer can be to pull down the road in Michigan, and it's 41 feet. Yeah.
That is small, there's this.
I'm gonna ask that again. Yep, I'm gonna be careful here. Again, everything should be going through me, guys. Even okay. Nope, that's all right. That's right. Again, great questions that need any questions. So, and then what's gonna happen is we're talking amongst ourselves, and we go, okay, Mr. Brewer, can you help us here? Okay. So, what was your question, Terry?
Well, I was looking, I was trying to remember if there's a size limit, small size or large size on the campers.
Okay.
Park. Thinking that there was, certain size, similar with other parks, that that would limit us, maybe a certain demographic or,
Are we inquiring about size limitations?
Yeah.
Okay.
Jim, you want to just remind us again what your size limitations both up and down are?
Well, they must be less than 10 years old, or get an exception from us for that, and reasonable looking. And besides, you have to be able to pull in with the truck. So you don't see 50, 60, 70-foot trailers going on the road behind the car because it violates state law. I think, and don't quote me on this because I don't know, but I have seen trailers up into the low 40-foot range. And those would be allowed, and we go right down to, we go right down to a 10, 12-foot trailer if someone, wanted to use. So that, it's whatever, a fifth wheel or a straight trailer to pull. It will not be a mobile home. It will be a trailer. Yeah. No.
Thanks. Oh, yeah, you can yell at me. I'm all over here. So.
Chairman, Michelle has asked, people on Zoom would like people to at least acknowledge or introduce their name. They can hear people talking, but they don't know who's talking.
So they can, everyone, the public can see us,
but they can't see out here.
Understand. I will make sure to say who is talking. Thank you very much. I'd like to John, I've got some questions about the report that you offered. Parking, John referenced quite a bit in the report. Our ordinance says that I'm specifically looking at 1605, which is specific standards for recreational vehicle seasonal park. And I don't see any specific conditions in there in regards to parking, other than the park must be licensed by the state of Michigan Public Health Code, which you quote. So does the proposed project comply with, where's the license by, procedures license from the state of Michigan? Yes, under that section. Sure. And that license requires how many, 1.5, I think?
1.5 per space.
Okay.
And so somebody can park, the owner obviously has a parking spot, and then there's also room for visitor parking. Is that correct?
Well, I read this as the park will be licensed by the state of Michigan. Public health. And I again was looking for parking, and that I believe, and John, I would ask your feedback on this one. I mean, that I believe is how we address parking was through that license.
Through the public health.
Yeah.
1.5.
Yeah. And if you received your license, that would satisfy the parking requirements as far as our ordinances.
Per unit.
Yes.
The concern that we addressed, or I addressed in the findings, was that as part of the applicant's submittal, they gave us their proposed lease agreement, which indicated during the daytime, we could have upwards of 10 guests, and in the evening, upwards of 6. Well, when I ran the parking calculation, based on the number of occupants per vehicle, I wanted to point out to the planning commission that there would appear that there is not sufficient parking on the site, even if you took a 20 or 30% occupancy. So they meet the 1.5, but because they're allowing additional 10 guests during the day, 6 to stay overnight, then you have to somehow compute that in. And the way that I did it was just take the occupants per vehicle, and in the table, I started out with 1.5, and I used 2, 3, and 4 in order to establish a range. And even at 4 people per vehicle in the evening, or during the day, even if only 10 or 20% of the units had guests, they're not going to have enough parking on the site. And that's just that's a way to evaluate the capacity of the property.
Thank you. I would then go to my ordinance, our ordinance again, and say that again, something an I indicates that 6 people residing on site and more than and no more than 4 registered guests. So the 10 people per site is permitted per our ordinance. But you're saying that we may have a conflict, we may have a conflict in our ordinance.
Yes.
Bill, I don't know, were you done with?
No, please go ahead, because I'm still.
I had a couple areas that I had questions about. The full-time non-movable units, the part of the seasonal, they, when you pull a trailer in or a motorhome in, they go up, they don't go on blocks, but there are jacks that take the weight off the trailers. Otherwise, when you walk around the springs, you're bouncing all over. I've seen some areas or some parts where that becomes a very, very permanent kind of situation. It can lead to expansion, spreading of accessory structures, that sort of thing. A little wooden area so that you don't track mud in, turns into a deck, and over time, there are people that may be there for a lengthy time.
There's no, Tommy, I mean, there's no permanent accessory structure allowed.
That's what,
That's in the ordinance.
The other area that I had some concerns about, and I haven't heard anything about them lately, that were mentioned were park homes. To me, park homes are just a miniature home, and to use those in this type of an RV park, basically, to my way of thinking, is just putting up homes on very undersized lots. Just a way of getting extra homes in. Using it for the mobility part of RVs, recreational vehicles, I see as a distinction between something that is put in without wheels, without any intention of moving it. That they're skirted around the bottom. The park homes become very permanent. So I have some concerns about those. There are some items in the RV park rules that I like, that are good items. And I don't think I necessarily have your most recent list of rules, but I'm concerned that I think we need to have some of those items stipulated in conditions if we were to okay this. Not, it's left to the park rules. Those can change at any time. Once we say, okay, you got it, it's a done deal from that point of view. But any kind of rules that are between the RV owner and the park owner are between them and can be changed or rotated or what have you. If there are some things that we specifically want, having a responding attendant on a 24/7 basis.
Also,
Fireworks, campfires. I've seen it, I've seen parks where we don't allow campfires. You put 80 campfires up there, I mean, everybody's not gonna have it every night, but it's a close condition to have campfires. And yet, I've seen other areas where I'll have 1 or 2 spots in the park that have a campfire. That was mentioned at one point earlier. Maybe a pavilion kind of thing, a common spot for people that want that campfire. Those are some of the things, I guess, that I'm thinking that we might want to make sure that we have either in our requirements listed in our ordinance, or that we put in conditionally. And there may be some others, but I don't want to see us relying on rules that the owner has for the campground, that Jim would have. In as much as the ownership of the campground can change, conditions can change, those rules can change. And if it's something that we really, really strongly feel is a must, then we have to make sure that we make it a condition, either through the ordinance or as part of any passage. One of the parking issues questions I had, a guest parking area, that was mentioned, is having an area that where guests could park. Part of the problem there, if I recall, that was down at the bottom, down towards River Drive. As I, the getting up to the top of that thing is a real strenuous walk. It's not something you want to do 4 or 5 times a day. The same thing can apply towards guests or other people, extra vehicles. Parking down at the bottom and walking up becomes a difficult thing. I think it's good. I think the nature of the hills are going to cause more than the normal amount of golf cart use, that type of thing. For people that just want to get between their unit and their boat over in the marina. You've got a cooler, some pop in it, lunches, ice, etc. Trudging up and down the hill with that is a real chore. People are going to want to use golf carts. So I think there are going to be a lot of them. And that kind of gets into that 1.5 parking spaces. How good is the 0.5? I think we're talking golf carts. And I think a lot of people are going to want to use, or use their vehicles one way or the other. But that would be between the park and the marina. One of the things I'm not sure of, and has never been very clear to me on this, is the percent of the developed area versus the usable open space. What that ratio is. And so those are the main things I have questions about.
Andy, can I mean, I'm not sure, again, to ask you but again, comment or Jim carry on parking.
So we are permitted with our septic to have 6 park homes, okay? And I mean, I don't want to do it, but even if you made it a condition that they can't be park homes, because we don't want anything permanent to, like the places you see down in Florida that go, that crazy. That's why we say we are going to make sure your campers 10 years or newer by exception.
That's 6 park homes.
Yeah, that's all we can have. 6 pursuant to the septic size.
And was there any licensing issues with, again, going back to this campground license issue? Was that referenced in there as well in regards to?
Yeah, it is. It's a condition from is it MI Waters, because you have to have 150 gallons per parking lot, 75 gallons per trailer, and with the septic size permitted, you can only have 74 trailers and 6 parking. So if you want to make it a condition that there be no parking miles there.
6 park miles. And
regards to guest parking, can you comment on that? As a general, I mean, a pretty general. I'm sorry, folks who are, I apologize, folks who are watching me. Now Carrie May is going to speak.
So I'm just gonna grab this map real quick. When we talked about the parking in the subcommittee, we made a kind of a scale map here that was a little bit more representative than the one on the plans of what the actual size of the RV was. And so the 1.5 spaces does represent one car, and a half space is a golf cart. Now, that's not to say, and, you know, I don't know where your commission is on things that have been offered at the subcommittee level, because obviously the, you know, the owners said we'd be willing to do A, B, C, D, right? But I think this down here is where we had the overflows. And then, you know, if you, I mean, you can see on here, if you wanted 2 full spaces, these sites are plenty big. I mean, we really were kind of just, that's one of the things, we're just looking for a number, how many do you want, you know? So, does that answer your question?
Yeah. I guess I'm still not sure though, what part of, in terms of the total number of acreage, inside the green line, out, that's 10 acres?
Oh, yeah, that's a separate question. And that, let me just grab this map real quick. This is just from the regular plans. And this is the little coverage table. So this is the overall footprint of the park, where you can see the dark green line. And so what's covered by, it's broken out here by the gravel roads is 14%. The RV sites is 51%. And the common space, which is according to the ordinance, can include the open areas, the baths, the pavilions, is 35%. And that would include these areas, yep, and this. And then, you know, these green areas out to the brewer's property line, of course, it just wooded outside of the park, so.
Okay, so this is not part of the 10 acres.
All right. Thanks.
I guess something I'm not real clear on still on this in the park home issue. Do I understand then if after 10 years, if I owned a park home, I'd be told that I have to remove it?
You'd have to update it. I'm sorry, Jim.
No, that's all, Jim Brewer, and the answer is yes, it still has to be, can't be more than 10 years old.
I guess, what does updating consist of? I guess that I'm still not clear. Paint up, fix up, or move it and put in a new unit? New unit, okay.
I mean, that's what they would do. This is Jim again, sorry.
I follow the same track. I need you.
John, I'm gonna go back to your report again, if I can, please. Now I'm on page 2, under section 117.1602B. If you will, it's the 4th paragraph, 3rd not highlighted paragraph. Could you comment? It states the public safety review relied on the standards for recreational vehicle parks. You see that, John? You could, and campgrounds as a basis for the review. Application of these standards will require a redesign of the proposed park. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, the fire department, the fire chief reviewed the plans against the National Fire Protection Association NFP guideline 1194, which are very specific technical design guidelines for RV parks and campgrounds. And he did prepare a letter which was part of the initial technical memo that was issued. And he noted a number of areas that needed to be changed. There are certain things in the technical guidelines regarding the geometrics of turning movements, the spacing between the campsites, the location of fire suppression equipment, signage. So he had noted, he had a fair number of items in his letter that needed to be addressed. I think the applicant, in response to that, submitted a revised site plan that showed the secondary access off of Miller Road, and they did some redesign of the park in order to address some of those issues. But I don't know if all of the issues have been resolved as part of that technical review from the fire department.
Thank you. And again, we are operating, I guess Mr. Benton, we are operating from, what we are deliberating now is the application dated March 9th, 2020. Correct?
That is accurate.
And John, the site plan included in that application would not comply with the fire department's recommendations.
Correct.
If we could look at, I just keep talking to you guys unless you got something to say. If we can look at 1605, this is again specifically recreational vehicle seasonal park. And I think Andy is comments tonight asking to look at that, which obviously we should. Does anyone have, I'm on page 16-5, there's that in front of me. Does anyone have any concerns with the application not meeting A through L? Pretty straightforward stuff. I mean, these are measurements, these are square footage, I'll go now to M, which again is the license through public health code, which John was just referencing. And then obviously for them more licensing through the state of Michigan. Now I get to all stormwater shall be retained on the recreational vehicle park parcel. And again, if I'm operating under the application, well, I am operating under the application permit March 9th, which again indicates that stormwater will be self-contained. And we know we had an incident after that application was filed. And in which case the stormwater was not retained on site. My only other comment about that section is, and obviously Chief, I think The applicant has been clear right from the get-go that there will be a manager or security available 24 hours a day. I've never had a concern with that. Q, which is the screening, the green belt screening. Chris, I'm going to pick on you on this one because I know this goes back to, I've read, I know this goes back to, and keep in mind, the subcommittee does not make decisions. Subcommittee does not make decisions. Can you tell me what happened with that green belt discussion way back when with the subcommittee in terms of waiving the green belt requirement?
I think originally when they were looking at that side, originally the trees were pretty thick. All the way in. Since then, in soil erosion and the corrections, there's very little there anymore along Miller Roadside. And it would be totally one of my major concerns of a buffer going forward anywhere along there. I have not had a chance to talk with Heidi to see what now that they're stabilized, what kind of buffer can be put in there. But it is absolutely, in my mind, pretty wide open.
That helps explain to me because I honestly never quite understood that waiver of the green belt.
It was pretty thick originally, although when they started moving the dirt on there, it did, again, I'm just going with what Meriwether said. They did kind of push some of the dirt on some of those trees that Meriwether said was going to die anyways, but since then, they clear cut quite a bit out of their addition.
Okay, and again, I don't believe there's any many times the applicant, I don't believe there's any argument about that or any dispute that they wouldn't do a green belt or anything like that. It was just, I know there's been discussion throughout the year about, well, the planning commission said we didn't need it, our subcommittee said we didn't need it, and I look at Q and I'm like, I don't think we have to do it. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, so, but now I understand, Chris, thank you, that it was at one time. So,
And was that just for the west side?
well, it's
The exception. I understand, yeah, we're required to have that on the whole thing. Yeah, the exception they talked about was just no, right.
Yeah, that's right.
Mr. Hepburn, can I answer a question?
If I have a question, certainly, okay?
Okay.
All right. Lori, do you want to, yeah, so, Chris?
I really hadn't paid, and I apologize for this. I'd like a clarification on, I'm looking at this parcel that they have with the same property tax number, a clarification on those parts that are not included in the park.
So this is Chris, folks for watching virtually, and Chris, you may want to come up because this is Chris Weinzapple speaking, and I don't know if folks can hear you, Chris, in regards to the question for either the applicant, Gary, or Mr. Blodgett.
I'm just looking at the site plan here and the original full parcel that I was looking at here. And I'm now seeing that there are several parcels that actually state that it's not included in the park. What, I guess I need a clarification because there's never been a land division whatsoever on that.
Okay.
And so I need a clarification.
And I think Miss Carrie May is going to answer that question for us.
Well, and I may get help, but
Okay.
the ordinance required that the RV park be no more than 10 acres of the parcel. So
Right.
the parcel can be bigger than the 10 acres.
Correct.
But the park can only be 10 acres.
Okay.
So that's the outline of the 10 acres.
Okay, so I guess the term not included in the park, it actually is included in the park.
Well, the park can only
No,
be,
not the park development, the park land. So in other words, instead of 10 acres, which is required, we're gonna have a total of what, 16 acres or something?
no, because the park boundary is only 10 acres.
So you're telling me what?
I'm telling you that the ordinance requires that our park boundary be no more than 10 acres. So that line with the dark green is a 10-acre piece of a parcel that is a park. But the
Okay,
parcel can be
so-
bigger than the 10 acres, but the park can only be 10 acres.
Oh, okay. So that is still part of the park property. Common area, land division?
No, sorry, this is Andy Lyon. To my understanding, when you speak of the 20%, for instance, common area, I believe it has to be within that 10 acres, and we have 35% of that 10 acres. We're not agreeing with you, Chris, because I can't have you call it park parcel. It's part of a
The
parcel.
common area of the park.
The common area of the RV park is within the green boundaries.
All right, so I'm not understanding.
The parcel owned by the applicant is larger than 10 acres, but we can only have the park boundary itself be 10 acres.
Mr. Vermetti.
I think probably, Mr. Eichel actually probably speak to that issue. And I think everybody's saying sort of the same thing, but semantics are getting.
The parcel is larger than 10 acres. The ordinance restricts the size of the RV park
Understand
to 10 acres. The green belt has to conform, the green belt is applicable to the 10 acres. And the 20% common space is applicable just to the 20 acres. The rest of the property is just reserved land.
You meant 10 acres, not
10
20.
acres,
Thank you.
The rest of the property is just reserved land. It's not part of the common space, or it's not part of the green belt. It's just undeveloped land.
So can they utilize that for something else later on?
It's subject to zoning.
Okay, I'm gonna circle back, thank you. I'm gonna circle back. Lori, we were talking about the green belt. We're talking about the requirement of the green belt. But there isn't currently one, certainly on Miller Road. And yet that it's required for the ordinance. So a comment you'd like to make, or I guess my question to you is, do you have any objection to a green belt on Miller Road?
No, I do not.
Okay. Thank you. If we're prepared to, I'd like to go back to 202. General land use standards.
And Bill, corrected it, was letter, not Q.
Thank you very much. So.
Was that?
Yeah.
Question about stormwater, that was Q.
No, that was green, that was green belt issue. Back to, again, 1602. Which again is, which John went through for us, obviously, in his report. My question is, any conflict with the proposed use shall be consistent with the adopted township master plan? Any dispute about that at all? Subparent B,
The proposed use shall be designed, constructed, operated and maintained. I guess for me, it's focusing on design and construction. To be consistent with the existing intended character of the general vicinity. And that such a use will not change the essential character of the area with which it is proposed. Any discussion about that?
I guess the question to the subcommittee, did you get to see more of the design of the finished product in terms of landscaping and how it might, some visual of what it might look like at the end of the process?
We do have specifically spelled out in the ordinance what a green belt would consist of. It does have.
Okay, I'm not necessarily referencing the green belt. I'm talking about if we're looking at how does it integrate itself with the environment. If I'm understanding what that this paragraph is talking about and relating to, wants to be consistent with it. What's it gonna look like at the end? As far as bushes, trees planted, lawn growing, mowed area. I go back to my visit to the co-op 72 by the resort.
Yeah.
And you go in there and there's trees and it's beautiful. There's a little fountain up front and all that. I mean, it's just, and you go through, we went through there and talked to a couple people and it's just, it's wonderful. And you're gonna ask me, does that blend itself well there? Absolutely, it does. Now, I have no vision for, I mean, they've done some rough grading here. It's not even close to final grade. So what's the perception as you guys went through this?
Perception I've created in my mind from what you said.
Let me ask, Carrie, do you have a final? Do you have a final?
These guys can help me.
Thank you.
Well, when we were talking about the green belt originally, and Tom is right, it's very defined, like how many trees, how wide apart, and the spacing. And part of our concern with that, and it did get kind of misconstrued in the original discussions, but our concern was that if the green belt was down at the perimeter of the park, if you were driving along the road, you would be just looking right over the top of it. It wouldn't screen the park at all. So we were proposing a more natural, spread out green belt, and we were going to work with the conservation district to find the native plantings that would accomplish that. But then we were, we kind of got stuck because we were looking for that. Is that what you want, or do you want this formal looking green hedge along the border? So that's kind of where that.
Okay. All right. Is that good? You good with that? Okay. I struggle with this one. I struggle with it. Because I struggle with the again, if I were to what the work that has been done on the site. There's a ridge there, obviously, we all know that. Big ridge there. Really runs from really the old motel, all the way down. I mean, Booker Road through that conservancy and everything. And that's been changed dramatically. And again, designed and constructed
consistent with character and general vicinity. Again, I get it, you know, put homes in there, I'm gonna develop the property, it's gonna change. But it's a big change, a big change. So that's what I struggle with the.
You're looking at, is the way it is right today, or what it's going to be when it would be finished?
But I guess, we're here today discussing an application from a year and a half ago.
Mhm.
And what, that's what I'm focused on.
Bill, a comment on that same area. In determining whether the use will change the essential character of the area. When you live in a beautiful area, you're gonna get people. Because everybody wants to be in a beautiful area. That's the nature of the beast, and that brings pressure. And we have to recognize that. And I also think we have to recognize it's a village zone, which means what can be developed in a village zone is residential. It can be businesses, it can be apartments, it can be motels. There's a variety of things that can go into a village zone. It's the nature of the village zone. As far as what the end product will look like, a lot of that, just like my house and my area, I mean, we have rules against my making it look like a junkyard. But as to whether it would make better homes and gardens or not, it's pretty much gonna be up to me as the owner. And that's kind of gonna fall on Jim a little bit too, I think, you know. Does he want one to be in competition with one of them 72? I don't know, yeah. The more attractive he makes his property, the more desirable it'll be. The more likely it will be to fill up, to utilize all the spaces and be able to attract the type of people that he wants. One of the hard parts about having to ask people to leave if they are disruptive is, oh man, there goes some money and I can't sell it. You know, but when you've got a waiting list, it's a whole different ballgame. And I think from my point of view on that, it's just very difficult for us to determine what the essential character of the area is. What it was 20 years ago is not what it is today. And we're still changing up here, but we are changing. And that's the thing I wrestle with there. Hopefully it'll be a shining jewel in our township. But what it becomes, I'm not sure. But I think we do have to consider that it is a village zone, which makes it different than an R1 zone, from strictly residential zone. There are things allowed in the village zone. Hopefully they're very attractive and they don't change the nature of the area that much.
From what I understood from our conversations in our meetings, from the information that was given to us from Mr. Brewer and Mr. Keel, is that we're going I was taking it more of an upper class campground, not an overnight, where there's a lot of in and out traffic. They come in the spring, the trailers are there for the whole season. It's not a transient. Every weekend, somebody new comes in. It's more of a place where they go to live for, the summer, they're for temporary homes there, and they come back and forth. And it was going to be more of an upscale. The impressions that we got from our conversations with that.
just gonna keep on moving down through this section. of this. I mean,
Chair?
yes,
Got a request from Michelle. There's a reporter that's on Zoom, and they would like, if once the planning commissioners talk, they would identify themselves as well.
every time I talk.
Well, or at least introduce themselves. They don't know the names of the planning commission. Unless you turn them aside for. Maybe that'll.
We can't see that. We can't see that.
Can't see the names.
You can't see that, you can't see that, Michelle?
I'm gonna move the camera back.
The,
No, that's right. You know what, my name is Bill Heffernan. Bob Ford is to my left. Terry Kopkow is to my right. And Tom Cole is the last gentleman down on my right.
Okay, that's good.
I'm moving down through this section. C. Again, this is in regards to having this restored to future uses in the same general vicinity. Again, John's report, which I concur with, that again, the incident that occurred July 2020, occurred after the filing of the application. I would state was disturbed. But other thoughts?
Can't disagree that it was disturbing. My understanding is it's resolved. Where all groundwater mismaintained on the site is going to be the end result. Is that? And that's required by the soil erosion people and their permit. I understand. I'm very concerned what happened. It's a crazy thing.
I do have a question on that, Bill. Tom Cole. Yeah. If I have an overflow of water under my property, okay, and remediation is attempted, so there's some adjustments or something in the overflow, the ability to absorb that, or, you know, that fixes it, everybody's happy. But if it doesn't fix it, at what point does something happen? I mean, and what happens? Do we close down the campground if it can't be fixed? I mean, that's a major. And what do you do if we say, okay, we're going to make sure that water is retained on site? If it turns out it just can't be done, what happens then? I'm asking, I don't know. I suppose there's always some kind of answer. A retention pond and then pumps it off site. And I would think there's something that can be done, but
I think, again, I think it's important, you know, again, we're focused on this application March. Thank you. March of 2020. That's our application. And we have received volumes of information. I understand we have the ability to was inaccurate. Andy Blodgett.
This is Andy Blodgett. We've been biting our tongues a bit because the events of last summer occurred before, or occurred without the erosion controls, which are in the application, the engineering plans that you have not been put in place yet. And that's the problem here, is that if you're looking at the application, you have to look at the engineering within that, which will prevent, and Gary could talk if you have specific questions. The application you have in front of you has engineering plans to maintain all the water on site. Those were not in place last summer when the erosion and runoff events occurred.
I guess I do have a follow-up question for that. Is that our fault they weren't in place?
It's a chicken and egg though, because work was started under a soil erosion permit, and the zoning administrator looked at the permit, and I can go into that history if you want. I don't know if that's what you mean, but point being, the work to do that erosion or runoff control is part of this project, and that's the stuff we can't do. Heidi came in recently and said, "Oh, you're doing that now under my soil erosion permit," but all of that work that was done recently, that's part of the construction of this. It was the intent of that, and so it didn't happen because it was in this application to be done.
Mr. Chairman?
Thank you. And yes, John.
I would just like to counter that argument. Under the state statute with soil erosion permit, it's incumbent upon the applicant before they start the grading process to install the soil erosion and sedimentation measures, control measures, not after, before. Okay, I just want to clarify that. Because I think Mr. Blodgett was he was saying, we're going to do it now, but the way that the soil permits are issued, the measures to protect the site from soil erosion are done before the grading starts, in anticipation of the grading.
All right, thank you. Any other comments on that? D. This again. Chicken or the egg was a perfect analogy, Andy. This gets back to you guys know I'm always hitting my public safety, fire department, law enforcement drum. I think it's the bedrock for what we do. It's arguably the most important thing we do in regards to projects. And the application does not adequately address the fire department's concerns. And that's where my concern is with you.
Actually, that's on my list of questions, is because there's a several page letter from the fire department recommending things and asking for things. I didn't know if those were accomplished or not. Right. Or what you're saying is the application doesn't provide for those things? Are they required to have that before in the application or at the time of application?
Well, it's not in the application. Again, I'll just pick on the second entrance, which I know there was talk again about a second entrance. I've read the paperwork. Okay? the second, excuse me, the emergency exit, I should not have said entrance, the emergency exit on Miller Road. But the lack, what appears to me, based upon the application, the lack of detail in regards to public safety. And that's why I believe D is not met. And I know there's been a lot of work done with communicating with the fire department. I've seen, again, there's so much information that's been thrown at us, and it's why I have to continue to go back to that application last year. I'm a simple person. Got to stay focused on what is my application. Carrie May, I'm going to ask Carrie may have a comment or a rebuttal to my statement.
Okay. It's not necessarily a rebuttal. I mean, we agreed completely about the fire safety and that being a paramount importance on the project. So I just wanted to make clear that there were 3 separate fire chief reviews of the project. In the original letter that he sent, he was okay with everything. And then the second one, he asked for a couple other things. But now the third one, to me, the issue is, and maybe you can just have a discussion so we understand where you're coming from about it. If new standards are being applied in a secondary or a third review of the project that weren't originally applied, because not every fire chief applies NFPA 1142, some do, some don't. It's there, you know, I mean, we definitely went to him, we drove him around the site, is this okay? He was given the plans, and I don't fault him for coming back later and going, oh, wait, I want to apply this. And we want to meet that. My issue is, how is it fair to the applicant to go back and apply new standards, but not allow him to then make a concession or say, I will provide this to meet that, and then that be a condition of your approval, since it's a new standard. You know, I'm just asking because, and if you want to ask me about stormwater, I have a great comment for you on that when you go back to that.
And I think I do have something to add, but first I'm going to go back to John, and again, your report, and if you could comment in regards to public safety.
Yeah, I mean, the process that I used for the subcommittee when they asked us to do the technical review is I reached out to all of the review agencies, Sheriff's Department, the County Road Commission, the Fire Department, all the local agencies for comments. And I provided each of them with a PDF of Carrie's engineering drawings. The fire chief asked if I could provide him actual plots of the drawings because he wanted to do takeoffs, which I did. I sent him a copy of the drawings. And that's what he based his review on. At the time that he and I chatted, I asked him what standards he was going to use, and he said he was going to use NFPA 1194. So he was well aware of the NFP guidelines for campgrounds and RV parks, and that's what he based his review on at the time.
And you got to, Jim, I'll wait to you just a second, but I guess to the, I do want to mention, because I think Ms. May's question about, please don't keep changing the goalposts on us, okay? But I am always, it's the applicant's responsibility to comply with the ordinance. It's not my responsibility to make sure an applicant complies with the ordinance. I'm looking at 2 engineers and attorneys and so forth, at least 2 of you, with way more education than I'll ever have. And
ordinance specifically states that, and they're not lost, and now bear with me, because I think it's important. My book's falling apart. And I'm gonna refer to 1601, again, special land use procedures. It's gonna be subparent B, subparent 4. And again, it talks about reports and/or testimony by officials representing state, county, or local departments of public safety.
Right.
And that's fair or not, that's my comment about it.
We don't disagree with that.
Anything else on D? Any concerns with E? I don't have any concerns with E. I think I don't have any concerns with E. But likewise, I don't have any concerns with F. Can we say anything? If I can go to G. This is the largest this is what I find most problematic. G states that the proposed use shall ensure that the environment shall be preserved in its natural state insofar as practical, by minimizing tree and soil removal and by topographical modifications that result in maximum harmony with adjacent areas. And I heard you guys, what you talked about, but I guess appreciate your feedback on G, or your comments on G. How that site complies with G. Any comments? John, comments on G for me, please, if you would.
Yes, I can. I think it really comes down to a statement that I made maybe a couple of meetings ago, that when you develop a piece of property, you can either design it to the code or you design it with the land. And typically, if this project would have started out as any other project would have been, where the applicant would have had an existing topographic map done of the property and identified all of the significant vegetation, and then started actually using that information then to develop the property, to minimize disruption and minimize the soil erosion and the grading that happened on this property, the outcome may have been entirely different. But what happened was, you know what happened, the grading happened, the clear cutting of the ridge line or the ridge happened. And as a result of that, it did not maximize the natural features of the site. And it actually, conversely, it actually destroyed the natural features of the site. So, it's well documented. When I looked at this, when I looked at this as part of the review, your master plan is very specific in terms of its analysis of slope conditions in the township, soil conditions, and it really spells out the implications that would happen when these type of sensitive properties are developed and the problems that could occur. And so the master plan actually painted a picture of exactly what happened by not doing this in the correct way. So that's why it doesn't meet the standard.
Thank you. Andy, can I ask for your comments in regards to G, please?
Yeah, you want to jump in or you want me to take this?
Well, I mean, it's.
Okay, I'm sorry, Carrie, okay, that's fine. Go, Carrie,
Okay.
Carrie May.
Thank you. No, I mean, obviously, we disagree that it's not designed to the topography. Now, the tree cutting, that happened under a soil erosion permit before we really even started the design. If you look out there and say, well, that looks like they're building the RV park, that's because we designed the RV park to go on the property. The top plateau, really, they've, apart from cutting the trees, they've essentially leveled that. There's not more than probably, I'd say maybe 18 inches that they took off there. They more or less flattened it. But the existing plateaus where the sites are located and the flat areas were flat areas. It wasn't a giant ridge that they chopped off. They cleared it, yes, but the topography is essentially what it was, with the grading, the smoothing and the cutting of the trees. So I agree. When we got involved in the project, the first thing we did was ask Chris Weinzapple, do these guys have a permit for this? And we were told that they did by Chris. So it's hard to go back and then tell them, what do you tell them? It's done, it's behind you, it was permitted. And all we can do is go forward and design it with the quality design that we can do there.
This is Andy. I would add from an ordinance point of view.
So Andy Blodgett, folks, sorry. Yep.
I do believe that this general subsection has to be read in combination with the very specific parts of 1605. In other words, yes, we have a general standard, but in 1605, you set forth parameters very specific to this site, that it can be no more than 10 acres, that you can have 8 per acre, so you basically have 80. You have space requirements for roads, you have space requirements, size for the sites. What I'm getting at is, I think this interplay, if you will, about the environment has to take into place the use. In other words, if it's all a giant condo building, that's different than a park, things like that. And so I don't think you can give a fair reading of G here without also taking into account the space constraints that 1605 imposes on the project.
May I ask a question? Sure. Andy, speaking to a question, is because the applicant wished to have 80 sites on that 10 acre parcel, correct? I mean, that was their vision.
Correct. They wanted to max, there's no doubt, and this is where Mr. Iapangelo and I disagree, there's no doubt at all that this application was designed to go the maximum amount allowable by your ordinances, absolutely.
All right, thank you.
So what he's saying, make sure I am a fellow Superman. Let's see, as insofar as practical. So clear cutting the entire area was the only option. That's the only way, it was no other way to maximize harmony or preserve it in its natural state. The only way to do it was to clear cut it, and you can see the pictures. Is what, in order to get 80 sites in there, that was the only way. Was, and there are some trees up on the bluff there, and there's some along the ridge line. But that was, you determined that as practical meant this is what you had to do.
I think it's a great question. If I can, I think Jim, I think you wish, Jim Brewer.
This is Jim Brewer, and we didn't clear cut all the trees. There's still a lot of trees there, but we are struggling even with what we did to get 80 sites. We may not even get 80. They're number 9, I think it is, might be. Yeah, we can do it, but environmentally, we might not want to do that one. But yeah, this is, I mean, we just did the work we needed to get the proposal to try to meet your ordinance. And nothing's been done since we put in for nothing other than stabilization and stuff ordered by the county has been done since we proposed that from there. And one other thing I'd like to add is when we first brought this proposal forward, we met with the subcommittee, I think Terry, Joe, and Mr. King, and we had a Miller Road exit. We had it on there. They asked us to remove it. And if you go back and look at the minutes that Joe Merlo had in I forget what month it was, he said one of the things about the Greenbelt, if they wanted us to take that Miller Road access off so we could leave more trees there. All right, so I feel like, we did propose a thing with 2 exits. Y'all told us to take it off.
Not y'all, Jim, not y'all.
Well, the subcommittee asked us to take it off. I'm sorry, but the subcommittee asked us to take it off. And we had, I'd rather have it there. If you want it for regular, it's great. If you want it for emergency, it's great.
Nope, I think you answered the question. Thank you. Thanks, Jim. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Just to provide some context for this discussion. Just because the ordinance says that the applicant is entitled to 8 units per acre, doesn't mean that if this went through the normal process, that the designs and the application would have been submitted prior to any construction happening on that property. What would have happened is you would probably end up with a significant reduction in the number of RV sites in order to protect the natural character of the property. So what you're presented with now is the applicant went, got a soil permit, didn't get any approvals from the planning commission, leveled the property for 10 acres, put in 80 units. And because of that, that's why it does not comply with the standard, because if it went through the normal process, the chances are between the applicant and the planning commission, the number of sites would have been reduced in order to protect the integrity of the site. And that's what did not happen.
Thank you. I understand that.
Thank you.
Can I move on? Any questions, Tom, on that? Or G, you want to?
No, I've only that I've witnessed both types of campgrounds. I bought a first trailer in 1968. I sold my last one a year and a half ago, and I don't think I went a year in between all that time without a trailer. I've been through a lot of campgrounds. Some of them were either clear cut or they were an open field at the time they were developed. Others had very large trees. So it depends on the goal of the development, which is basically what we've already heard. So.
And H, is kind of a catch, I mean, in my interpretation, it's catch all for the rest of what we just gone through. And meeting the intent purposes of the ordinance. So, again, you guys gotta stop me. Do you know I just talk and talk and talk? So, I mean, but, I do have a question, for Mrs. Black. Conditional approval. My limited experience with conditional approval is, I always use the example of somebody's waiting for a permit from the building department. It might be a bad example, okay, but the building department's all backed up and they can't get to it for, so we say, listen, we'll approve this application conditioned upon you getting the building department permit, okay? We're not gonna make you wait because they're backed up. You've mentioned conditional a lot with your client's application. And there seems to me, I'm struggling with conditional versus creating, I guess. And it's the only way I can explain it, is adding a new site plan, adding letters from the fire department, the sheriff's department, to the application of March of 2020. Picking out information that we've received over the last year, and build, this probably isn't the right way to say it, but building the application. And that's what I struggle with, is I don't think it's my business to build anybody's application, most importantly, because I may build it wrong. And then we might approve something that the applicant doesn't want. So could you comment on that, please?
Yeah,
Again, Andy Black.
Thank you. I keep messing that up. Andy Black. I heard Mr. Iavangeli say in a normal process. Okay, let's turn that to this approval process. There has been nothing about this normal at all. I mean, we're here a year later from the first public comments, and there's been so much back and forth. Gary, just as one example, outlined 12 months ago, if you asked the fire chief, he would have said it's fine. 3 or 4 months ago, I talked with him out here and he said, I really don't have a preference one way or another. And now we're hit with, oh, NFPA 11. Again, fine. But things keep changing. We've been through so much discovery on this. We've been through all of that. None of this has been normal. And it's not until tonight that we actually hear, Bill, you've been very careful, and I get it, to say, hey, that's the subcommittee, not the planning commission. But it's, 14 months later that we actually hear from you folks about what you have concerns. I would point out, I think this is the first application under this ordinance for RV seasonal park. It's new. There are things. I mean, this is a relatively new ordinance. I don't think it's out of character or out of bounds for this group to set out some of those guidelines. We've been very free to say, park models, Miller Road, buffer strips, whatever those issues are, that we are willing to meet those. And I think with the history of this application, that's fair, because frankly, if not, you're saying, we're going to spend tonight, July 13, 2021, telling you all what you want, and then you're going to start over. And we'll be here for a year again. I mean, that's the other option. I'm not saying the job is easy, because you've got a potpourri, a buffet line, whatever you want, of options that have been discussed. I do think there are some areas that are easy. For instance, if you just want to do a one-liner of, pardon me, must conform with NFPA 11 or something like that. That is a possibility, and might I suggest that the next step after that would be that whoever the new zoning administrator is, of course, tasked with following up on that, and we don't get the signed permit until all of that next level work, if you will, is finished. But again, to summarize, I think given a relatively new ordinance and given the process, and moving goalposts is very fair and very apt description of what's going on here, it is a way to treat the applicant fairly here. And still do your job, if you believe those are valid concerns.
Thank you. Mr. Vermitten, can I pick on you as well? Same question. Same question. Conditional, and again, these are my words, please feel free to change them. Conditional versus creating.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Frankly, listening to everybody's articulations has been a Herculean effort, not only by the Planning Commission, but also by the subcommittee. And after all is said and done, it boils down to, it distills down to 3 options that this Planning Commission has, the 4 of you have. And that is to either approve this application of March of 20. There has been several additions, amendments, modifications to that that you can consider. B, you can deny the application, or you can carefully build, if you will, the application by approving with conditions. It all distills down to that very essence. And it's not an enviable task for the 4 of you. But you have all of the information. The subcommittee was tasked with simply gathering information and providing it to this commission. So that would be my comments with respect to that.
Thank you. I do want to say, and I think Nancy mentioned it, I made some notes when Nancy was talking during public comment. And I think I'm going to quote her because I think I wrote it down correctly. She said it's a, she lives down that way. It's a zoo right now. It's a mess. You've heard that consistently, and I wanted to make sure that it's a zoo right now. It's not the applicant's fault of what's been, what occurs. We know that that is a congested area. It's our most congested area in the township. And I think, again, it's been written and alluded to through these documents, but at no point in time am I blaming or holding the applicant responsible for the zoo that's down there right now. That's not fair, in my opinion. And it's a concern. It's a concern for the residents. Totally understand it. We're undertaking our master plan. I'm not trying to get off task here. We're going to undertake our master plan here soon. I think this is something we seriously need to look at. We seriously need to engage these residents in that area on what's going on and what they want to have happen. That none of that is Mr. and Mrs. Brewer's problem. Their RV park doesn't exist today. So, other comments, other deliberations.
I concur. I thought about that a lot when we were talking about the traffic. And it's already crazy. And then trying to anticipate what the RV park might add to that. if at all, who knows? It's already a crazy time down there. And I think that, I agree that that's something that we need to look at definitely as we go through the master plan. And do we need to widen the road? Do we need a turn lane? Do we need a walking path, a bike path? Who knows? But whatever we do, we need to definitely look at that. But I struggle like you are with, that's not, they didn't create it, and that's not their problem. You need to deal with that, we'll deal with it. But this is, what's the RV park? Does it meet the standards that we're putting forth here? How do we balance that? To me, it's always a question of balance between the growth and protecting the environment, protecting the watershed we've been blessed with. We gotta make sure we do that. And can we add this with these provisions? They follow the rules and do it, and still protect the environment at the same time. That's what I'm struggling with.
I think we all share that same thing. That's why we volunteered for these jobs. Okay, again, that's what our master plan talks about. And zoning's all about balance and again,
What is that?
Bill, do you at any time receive from the subcommittee a list of recommendations or suggestions on conditions or anything for this? If so, I've misplaced it. I'm just wondering if maybe in their minutes or anything that came through that, Chris, do you recall anything?
I'm sorry, the what now?
Well, I'm thinking if we look at whether this can be approved with conditions, have we done anything with, or have we received from the subcommittee any kind of a list, either through minutes or of recommendations or suggestions that this, the original application was missing or should be added?
No.
Okay. I didn't recall one, but
The list of conditions were questionable at the July meeting.
okay.
Another question.
I guess I'm thinking on two different lines here. One is, can we accept this application with conditions that would solve most of these problems? Is one thing. But a couple of the areas that you just went over that we talked about. And I'm thinking of on 1602A, subparagraphs D and G are not correctable. I mean, we can't put conditions in that are solved most. Or am I wrong? Actually, D, there probably are. It's C, I guess, that would be the and basically that will be in terms of the stormwater drainage that we have. That can be corrected. You can't undo what already occurred.
Whatever they were working on it
Yeah,
to correct it.
the part, subparagraph G.
That's what we just went all the time.
Right, and if we tried to put conditions on an approval, how would we deal with subparagraph G? That's my question.
My opinion is you don't. It's done. G is done.
So approve, disapprove, or approve with conditions. A, B, or C choices aren't going to affect G. That's, you can't undo it, basically, right?
And now what about putting in plants and within the park itself?
Mediating between sites.
Yeah, between sites and open areas, adding back in trees and plants. It'll take a while to grab hold and grow again, but I mean, is that a way to reverse that action?
You guys tell me, as soon as we're kind of wrapping up deliberations, we're kind of, I mean, again, I mean, that's, you know, I'm happy to stay till I can work at 8 tomorrow morning, so other than that, so, yeah. But, what I'd like to do, I mean, again, well, I guess I reserve the right. Yeah, I mean, if we're wrapping up deliberations, I mean, I really would like, I would like to just ask a final comment from our consultant, and from the applicant and Mr. Blodgett. I mean, again, I'm interested to hear your final thoughts after, listening to you. Again, under, I guess what I'm doing is asking for any additional information. So,
First,
yes.
What I'm thinking is if there is some predilection of the commission to approve the application with conditions, those conditions would have to be articulated rather precisely. And the option for the planning commission could be, the subcommittee was originally tasked with the task of gathering information, providing that information. The task was not providing, I think that goes, Mr. Cole, to your question, recommendations or conditions based on the information that was gathered. And so you could also have an option D, and that is to return to deliberation or to some thought process of the subcommittee to create a list of conditions that Mr. Cole is seeking to present to the planning commission to approve, to deny, etc. So there is another option, another door. I know this has been a lengthy process.
Yeah. And that, can I follow up on that question is, if you know the answer to this. If there's a motion and a second and a vote to deny the application, is there anything keeping an applicant from coming right back in and filing a new application with the township?
Well, with my understanding that the application would absolutely come in and file a new application. Or an application, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. The last part.
The applicant could present a modified amended application to the township.
I would concur with Matt's comment. I mean, those are the options that we have. Yep.
No other final comment?
My final comment? Yeah. Based on the record, based on what I've seen as a planner, professional planner, my recommendation is based on the findings of fact to deny because they didn't meet the standards. It doesn't, if you deny the application, it doesn't prevent them from coming back with a new application with a new site plan, addressing some of the issues that have been discussed, both by the committee and by the planning commission. But on the face of it, because you have to evaluate the application, the March application, based on the facts, based on the standards. It doesn't meet some of the standards, and therefore it doesn't meet all of the standards, then, the planning commission is actually required to deny it. If it meets the standards, but you want some conditions attached, that's usually a motion to approve with conditions. But in a couple of these cases, they don't meet the standards. So in my opinion, the application needs to be denied. Thank you.
Andrew, Jay, you want to go? Sure, I'll go first. This process has been going on when we first started meeting the subcommittee 2 years now. 2 years. That's kind of ridiculous, but the goalposts keep moving. We're supposed to be able to design something to what Mr. Angeles thinks is relevant in his mind, even though it's not in any ordinance or any state rule. Like 5.5 parking sites per campsite. I don't think any place in the United States has that. But the problem is, the way I see it, the goalposts will keep moving. You'll keep kicking the can down the road. And when you kick the can down the road, we're the biggest taxpayer in Torch Village and have been for 21 years. Okay, we're the biggest employer in Torch Village, have been for 21 years. Okay, and we created a hostile, dangerous environment. We've never been allowed to build the RV park. And if Mr. Angeles would have followed your motion to open this dialogue with the applicant, which he's never really talked to us, he might understand some of these things. But now we've got this hostile, dangerous situation where we're getting used and abused and yelled at and threatened, and people playing chicken and assaulting our surveyor. This is a very dangerous situation. Our contractors are afraid to work up there. When they go up there and work, somebody opens up with a gun. Can you imagine if I was up on top of that hill and somebody went to look at the permit board and I opened up with an AR-15? Could you imagine? But yet that is going on. This is what you create. This is what is going on. This is real. And I fear for my life. I've already been hit and run a slope. And it's not us doing this illegal, immoral, unethical stuff. It's the opposition. And the only way to stop it is to move forward. Approve the conditions or deny, and we'll take it to the next level. Andy probably has a better answer.
Thank you. Thank you. Go ahead.
I think a problem here is that what I'm hearing is not a critique of the project as much as a critique of the specific 17 subsections within 1605. Because we ticked through them, and there may be disagreement on stormwater, but I've told you that what is out there is not in the plans. And so the record you have, and record Rader looked at these plans the state has, as far as we can tell, stormwater is going to be contained. So if you grant me that O is met, we have a situation where the township has set forth 17 very specific subsections for this project. They have been met, but instead we're turning back to 1602, the general standards, and saying, oh, but those don't get it. That's a very hard position to be in, especially when, as we said, the goalposts are moving. And that's I believe why the approval with conditions is appropriate at this moment, because it's simply unfair to say, well, we're going to take the general language of health, safety, and welfare and impose a different standard than existed when we were in subcommittee, than existed when the fire chief first looked at it. Look, we want to save the project, but you can't move the goalposts and rely on the vague language and all the very specific language of that. And that's what I'm hearing tonight.
planners think that your specific subsections don't, aren't good enough. But that's not the applicant's fault, and like you said 20 times, and you get it, Bill, that you have to grade us on those.
Thanks. I do want to say as well, that these have been, this, I feel passionately a decision needs to be made. I understand I'm only one person. It has been a year. Many things beyond our control. I'm not the guy who blames COVID on everything, okay? It caused us some issues, okay? But nonetheless, we've listened. I think we've listened to the public comments. We've examined our ordinance, reviewed it, had studies done, brought in consultants, and you heard what our consultant said. I don't want to kick this can down the road. We've never shied away from tough decisions here, ever. Short-term rentals, that was fun. Point of sale septic inspections. I'm sorry for the delay. I can't accept all the responsibility for that. I don't think it's anybody's fault. But I think it's important to make a decision. And if there is no more deliberations to take place, then I certainly would entertain a motion.
I would move that we deny the motion of the application. Based primarily, I guess, on the opening sentence of 117.1605, recreational vehicle seasonal park states, in addition to the standards of 117.1602A. And then it goes on to list some specific requirements of a recreational park. But they are in addition to 1602 that we had just gone through and itemized what conditions were not met.
Leo's trying to type this into a motion for us.
We need something more solid than that.
Okay.
So,
Motion by Cole to deny the application based on the opening sentence of 117.1605 RV seasonal park.
Yeah.
In addition to the standards of 1602A.
Right, and you can stop there.
Okay.
Leo, would you read that back if you're ready? Would you read that back?
Motion by Cole to deny the application based on the opening sentence of 117.1605 RV seasonal park. In addition to the standards of 1602A.
Mr. Vermetten, comment about that motion, and it's.
I do actually.
Thank you.
Could I have it read back?
Thanks.
Motion by Cole to deny the application based on the opening sentence of 117.1605 RV seasonal park. In addition to the standards of 11602A.
I think that the standards that the motion is including should be set forth with specificity. If that's the question, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
And not just a lot. With specificity.
Still your motion.
Yeah, are you referring to, be more specific about the 1602A?
Yes, and I think the opening sentence of 1605.
It would be, I was referring to the opening sentence in the standards of 1602A. The planning commission shall find the proposed recreational vehicle park shall meet the following specific land use standards. So basically, it's tying the two together. It ties 1605 back to 1602. And both have to be met. And basically I'm saying they're not being met. And maybe that will be the better way to state the motion.
Are you saying that each section of 117.1602, all sections are not in there?
No, not all sections, but the requirement is that they all be met.
A to include A through H? Is that what you're?
Yes.
Does that help at all?
Yes.
Say that it's A through H, is specific, or do you need language?
You
don't have it in front of you.
If I may.
Please, go ahead. Sorry, Bob. Go ahead, John.
We should specify under section 117.1602 is, I think you went through and you said that like letter A was satisfied. You need to go through and say, is B satisfied or not satisfied? Anything that you identify as not satisfied should be in the motion to deny. The reason why you're denying it is because it did not satisfy those specific sections.
You understand that, Tom?
Yes.
Okay.
And I would refer then to 117.1602A, subparagraph C. The proposed use shall not be hazardous, disturbing to existing or future uses in the same general vicinity and in the community as a whole. To subparagraph D, the proposed use shall be served adequately by essential public facilities and services such as, and actually I'm only looking really at streets and stormwater drainage that were not met. And G was not met. The proposed use shall ensure that the environment shall be preserved in its natural state insofar as practicable by minimizing tree and soil removal and by topographic modifications that result in maximum harmony with adjacent areas. Those are the ones from 1602.
Yeah, please, what's your name?
And if I missed it, I'm sorry. Was B included in that as well as A?
No, it was not.
You're not including B in your motion, then? That's okay. I mean, I'm simply asking.
I don't, I have no objections to including it.
No, that's your motion.
Yeah, I did not find that one that I could really apply.
And what about H?
Yes, H is the catch-all. I mean, it's a very.
Kind of hard to comply with H if you missed one of the ones.
If you miss one of the others, then H falls in.
So what I've done is
Go ahead, Leah.
motion by Cole to deny the application based on the opening sentence of 117.1605 RV seasonal park condition standards of 117.1602A, subparagraph C, subparagraph D, subparagraph G, subparagraph H.
Yes.
I'm sorry, yeah, pardon. Is there a second?
Would you like the application number or the parcel number included in this?
Yeah, we can. I just said application. We should specify exactly what it is.
Application 2002,
2020-01.
2020-01.
Parcel number, only because I got it right in front of me. Parcel number 05 12 006 047 00.
Okay. Anything else to include?
Mr. Cole? Anything else?
Okay, if it gets a second,
We didn't get.
would we have the option?
We're not sure if you're done with your motion. I'm sorry, I'm not sure if you're done with your motion.
I have a question.
Okay.
If I'm done and it's seconded, can people still amend or add anything that they wish to add? Before we vote on it? In other words, I'm saying, am I leaving something out here? And then I'm doing this on the fly. Covered it?
I think you covered it.
Okay, then my motion is done.
Okay, is there a second? I will second. Motion. Does anyone need the motion read back? Good. We all good, got it?
Give me the letters on I just seem to be confused.
In addition to
Under
the
A.
standards of 117-202A, subparagraph C, subparagraph D, subparagraph C, subparagraph H.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. We are ready for a roll call vote.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, please.
If I may,
Yes.
I think the chair may want to open that up for discussion.
Oh, additional discussion. Thank you. Thank you. Any other discussion? Thank you. Any other discussion? Any additional discussion?
We're saying that all this goes.
Well, I guess my feelings on making the motion is, the only other option I saw would be to accept the conditions, which would take a while. I'm just not ready to hand over a list of conditions. There's all kinds of thoughts going around in my head. It would take a day or two to finalize that kind of thing. I'm sure that Jim has thoughts too that he'd like to look at and consider on additions to it. And by denying those things, we can finalize this thing. Those types of things can be looked at, and if he wishes to make a new application with those things included and pertaining to this, that would be very beneficial. But I just, to start going through conditions, and I think it's just gonna string it out, kick it back to subcommittee, and, you know, we've gone that route. They haven't, it hasn't gotten to denying, my feeling is that denying does not say no forever. So that's
Your thinking is that it's reasonable then for the applicant to, with his understanding now of what would be required in a new application, that he could go forward with that.
But I think it's not indicated. Anybody can file an application on anything they want. Denial of an application is not the best.
It's our feeling rather than for us to continue to try and decide what condition, this condition, this condition.
Yeah.
Time to call it one way or the other.
And I hope I've made myself, I focus on March application. Appreciate Dan's input.
March, and that's where you started.
Any other discussion? Ready for roll call, vote, I think. I'll start with Cole.
I vote yes in favor of the motion.
Kaka.
I think there's struggle a lot with this. That is the more expedient way as you're expressing, then I would have to agree with the motion.
So that's a yes. That's a yes. Four, yes. And Heflin is a yes as well for reasons stated in the motion. Again, the application is failure to comply with 1602 and 1605. Not in their entirety, but for the reasons stated in the motion. Nine, special land use application 2020-1 passes with a vote 2-4 to. Thank you all for your time tonight and patience. There's nothing further. I'm going to turn my own chair.
Another application. Process. This is very important.